Hello, you fabulous women. I am going to talk a little bit about endocrine disruptors today. I know this might sound a little too technical, but I think it's a really important topic to discuss. We did touch on it a little bit in the hormone module, but I think it's important enough to give it its own little personal time here. So let's talk a little bit about what endocrine disruptors are and why you should care. So, endocrine, let's start off by saying, is it just a fancy word for hormones? So, your endocrine system relates to any of the hormones in your body, and obviously, disruption of that would be an endocrine disruptor. So, chemicals that cause disruption in your hormone system. So, the two classes, I guess, that I want to focus on would be xenoestrogens. So, these are chemicals that mimic or block the action of estrogen in your body, and obesogens. So, and these are chemicals that lead to either weight gain or weight retention. And remember, I'm always saying to people, oftentimes we think that number one, whatever condition or symptoms that we may be having, oftentimes we feel like we're the only one and that it's a result of our own personal willpower, or that we're just doing something wrong. But really, we have to, give homage to our body's amazing biochemistry. It all comes down to how these chemicals work in your body. And so it's important for you to know how these chemicals work, at least on some level, so that you can take back control. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you do that. So, what are the consequences of endocrine disruption? So, everything on the screen and more. But as you probably are aware, if you have not had contact with any of these issues, you probably know somebody who has had issues with fertility issues, and uh, random neurologic symptoms, so numbness and tingling in the hands and the feet, or slowing of your cognitive abilities. Thyroid disorders are huge right now. Endometriosis, fibroids, all of these can be consequences of endocrine disruptors. And I think it's just interesting. I talked about in an earlier video about this idea of idiopathic conditions, right? Conditions that we don't know why they happen. And for a lot of these that you see up here, would fall under the category for a lot of women as idiopathic. Like, you have fertility issues, but we don't know why. You can't lose weight, but we don't know why. And if you are failing to address the issues of toxins, then you may be missing the mark. Or specifically the cause of your issues. So, where do you find these xenoestrogens? So, again, chemicals that behave like estrogen in the body but cause chaos. So, you can find them in a plethora of places. I mean, this is the issue: is that they are ubiquitous; they're everywhere, right? So, we talk about food, and again, I talk about using food as medicine. But what if you're taking the medicine with the poison, right? So, you could be eating all the right foods. You're eating the fresh blueberries and the raspberries, but the blueberries and the raspberries are laden with herbicides and pesticides, and those herbicides and pesticides get into your body and they block the action of estrogen. They block the actions of your metabolic hormones. And so, rather than your body doing what it's supposed to be doing and getting all the benefits of eating these great, delicious foods, you're actually counteracting um, the actions of what they should be doing. So again, so you can find them in your foods, in the water that you're drinking, in the soil, in the meats that you're eating, the fish, the dairy, and let's not forget the plastic that we store these chemicals in, these foods in. All of those can get into your body and cause problems. Xenoestrogens found in cosmetics, hair products, deodorants, sunscreen, toothpaste, perfumes, nail polish, menstrual wear, so tampons and pads, candles, medications like birth control pills. Okay, so synthetic estrogens found in birth control pills, and synthetic hormone replacement therapy. So then also environmental toxins, so like laundry detergents, dryer sheets, household cleaners, plastics, receipts, paint, printer ink, I mean, the list is much more exhaustive. I just put some things on here because what I want you to start to do as we go through this is I want you to start to really take note of all of the things that you may come in contact with. They're getting absorbed into your body from various ways we talked about, through your skin, through digestion, from breathing, etc. They're getting into your body, and then thinking about your toxic load. We talked about that toxic burden, and how can you minimize this? So we'll talk specifically about how you can do it, but I want you to start thinking about it. And I also want you to start paying attention, if you haven't already, to all of the marketing that is out here right now, where people are trying to sell you products that are cleaner. Now, typically marketing can go either way. It's hard to know when people are marketing to you, whether they're, being completely honest, truthful, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about how to sort of navigate that system a little bit. But I do want you to start to notice, like, there are brands that you can buy that don't contain toxic chemicals. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how to find those in just a bit. So the same thing goes with obesogens. Now, obesogens, again, are chemicals that can alter your hormones and your metabolism. And so, again, imagine you're eating all the right foods, but they are laden with plastics. That they were stored in, or you are getting the pesticides, or you're putting on the cosmetics that are being absorbed into your skin. And these chemicals are going into your body, and they're saying, you know what? I think these fat cells need to be bigger. I think that we should make them bigger in size, change the shape of them. And I really want to centralize where this fat goes. And I want to target the central area right around your belly. This is exactly what these obesogens do. So I'm not exaggerating here. And then they want to affect your appetite. So even when you are doing all the right things and you are just sitting up at night, wondering why you are craving foods like crazy, it might be that your toxic burden is really high from obesogen. So you can find these in antibiotics, growth hormones that are injected into the meats and the poultry that we eat, pesticides, again, synthetic preservatives and processed foods. So again, everywhere. And I would be remiss as a Black woman to not talk about the disparities that exist within the toxic environmental exposures. So essentially, this article is just talking about how many of the care products that Black women use are filled with the chemicals that are problematic, the obesogens and the xenoestrogens. Now, you can make products that don't contain these chemicals, but just as if everything else, where did those products get made first? Are they doing them in products that are specifically used by Black women? Typically not. And you think about the options that are available for Black women. It took us, decades to even get a foundation shade that might match our skin tone. But do you think that we were the first people, once they decided, oh, we should start taking out these toxic chemicals, we're going to do it for the brown shades? No. So we're still getting a lot of the products with the chemicals in them. And so a study showing that this is disproportionate for products for women of color. Let's talk a little bit about hair relaxers. And this is a screenshot from the Environmental Working Group. We're going to talk a lot about that. I might even make a little video about it. So the EWG.org, Environmental Working Group, I've talked about them before, but they actually, this is how I determine what products are problematic, which ones have chemicals that I need to be aware of, and which ones are safer. But relaxers have been linked with fibroids, with cancer. And again, who is getting relaxers? We are. Who have higher rates of fibroids? Black women. Who has higher rates and death from breast cancer and uterine cancer? Black women. So you have to start to put the pieces together and say, okay, so what is it about being Black that places us at higher risk for these health disparities? Could it also be that we are disproportionately affected by toxins? Absolutely. And not just relaxers. I just pointed out relaxers, but environments where what people of color tend to live or have higher exposures to air pollution, water pollution. So it runs the gamut. These toxic disparities exist in all of the areas where environmental toxins exist. But specifically as Black women, I think we should be very much aware that there are products, because we have a choice in those issues. We have a choice in the types of products we choose to purchase, and being aware of the ones that are problematic. Going backwards again. So I just wanted to go over a few. We're not going to spend a lot of time here, but I also wanted to point out some terms that you've probably heard or you may not have heard. But so when we talk about personal care products, we're talking about hair care, skin care, hygiene products. So you may have heard, when you're looking at products, and even if you look at the marketing on them, they may say things like phthalates free or parabens free. So these are toxins, xenoestrogens, that have been shown to be toxic to the body. And so you want to find products that are paraben and phthalate free. Now, there are tons of other terms. As a matter of fact, I put them in here and then I took them out because it was just too overwhelming. But these are some really common ones. You may have heard of the word glyphosate. Glyphosate is a herbicide, pesticide that is sprayed on our food. It's also, the other term for it is Roundup, if you've heard of that. And it is sprayed on genetically modified crops, which we'll talk about in a second. But one of the most common genetically modified crops is cotton. And so you make tampons out of cotton and other materials, clothing, et cetera, et cetera. But those cotton can actually get on the body, because you put them inside of you, into one of the most absorbable parts of your body, your vagina. So this is also a problem. The word fragrance is found on many personal care products and, perfumes, et cetera, tons of different things. But that when a product says the word fragrance, it is a mishmash of chemicals that we may or may not even know exist. So they are able to get away with putting this on a label by just saying fragrance without actually telling you the chemical that it is. So it's hard for us to know what the chemicals you're being exposed to, but many of them have been shown to be xenoestrogens, obesogens, carcinogens, etc. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so household toxins also have xenoestrogens and obesogens and carcinogens and all of the gens. But the ones that I really wanted to point out were plastics. I say that a lot because the plastics are ubiquitous, and we can do a lot to limit our plastic exposure. But you may have heard terms like BPA. So if you've ever bought baby bottles or water bottles, they'll have the plastic ones that will say these are BPA free, making you think, oh, this must be safe. But what about all the other bisphenols? So what about all the other BPBs, BPSs that they use instead of BPA, right? So this is why when I recommend, if you're going to buy a bottle, if you're going to buy anything, buy the glass versions, buy stainless steel, but stay away from the plastics, even if they say BPA free. And then there are other plastics out in the world. The ones that have been shown to be the most problematic are the ones that are labeled number 3, number 6, and number 7. There are definitely other plastics. There are definitely other compounds in plastics that I did not put on here that are problematic. So I just say stay away from plastics altogether to the extent that you can, and do not reuse plastics. Do not warm things in plastics. Do not leave plastics bottles in your car, etc. I put this one on here, flame retardants, because I just think it's interesting. So you buy a couch and, they put all those, the Scotch Guard and that stuff to like protect the couches. Now, this is a really difficult one for me because I have kids, but that protectant coat that they put on the couches and furniture actually have been shown to be xenoestrogens and obesogens for that matter. And so really looking for natural alternatives to that. Should be on the top of your list. But then you also have to think about construction. So if you're building a house or remodeling a house, the products that are being used, the paints that are being used, all of these things are super important. Can be really overwhelming too, but you do the best that you can. So I put this on here. They're not necessarily xenoestrogens, toxic metals or heavy metals. But I thought I'd put them on here because I wanted to, again, make you aware that these are other chemicals that you get into your body. And so if you've had mixed metals placed in your mouth through dental procedures, this could be a source of problems for you. I talked about synthetic hormones previously as being an issue. And I think the point that I wanted to make here is that even in medicine, in the medical field, we use toxic chemicals all the time. And so everything that your doctor prescribes isn't necessarily safe for you. So you have to be cautious in that realm too. And then environmental or air pollutant toxins. Again, some of these, yes, are xenoestrogens, obesogens, particularly the air pollutants that might come from, exhaust from pipes or airplanes and other air toxins that are released into the environment. But some of these, like dust mites, bacteria, aren't necessarily xenoestrogens, but I threw them on here just so that you would be aware. So you also want to think about, how do you keep your air clean and circulate clean air through closed spaces. We learned that a lot during COVID, right? How do we circulate this air? We're just breathing in whatever is in the air. And sometimes what's in the air is toxic. So that is my quick spiel on xenoestrogens and obesogens and a couple of other toxins. But I just thought it's really important for you to be aware that these exist, what they could potentially cause. And then in a future video, we'll talk about how you can stay away from them. See you guys then.